Hi folks, I'm Ignatiy Vishnevetsky.
I'm Alex Dowd.
We are back again at Farmhouse Tavern, just around the corner from the AV Club office.
Welcome to Film Club.
So the Oscars are coming up this Sunday. Obviously, everybody hates the Oscars. That's why they're so much fun to talk about.
I think with the Academy, it's always 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Every single acting nominee is for a white person. And it wasn't like there weren't opportunities this year to change that. The most glaring one is probably Michael B. Jordan.
I'm not crazy about Beast of No Nation, but Idris Elba. It's a really interesting performance, and it's one that takes advantage of his charisma in a very interesting way. We're talking about a lack of diversity within the ceremony, but it's systemic. And the reason we have this conversation is because we sort of have to keep having this conversation. We reviewed maybe 3 films by African-American directors last year.
But I don't think you can entirely just say the films aren't out there, the performances aren't out there, because if you do look at a film like Creed, enormous box office success, critically acclaimed, generally well-liked in the industry, and it did get a nomination for
Sylvester Stallone.
Sylvester Stallone for supporting actor.
Would you have nominated Creed for Best Picture? Like, is Creed one of your 10 favorite? There you go.
No.
It's not one of
but
your
I like
favorite.
it better than several of the nominees.
I guess the conversation about diversity is almost a conversation about what should be in the Academy's conversation.
I think Creed is a film that should very much be in their wheelhouse, and the fact that it got almost no support, I think, is telling.
To go back to Stallone, now, as you know, I love Stallone. And so it's very pleasant to see him nominated. Personally, I would like to see that category go to Mark Rylance.
He doesn't have a lot of scenes, and he's very understated, but there's a lot of dry humor, and he's affecting, too, I think, in that role. I would almost like supporting actor to go to Tom Hardy. I mean, his behavior is despicable in the film, but it makes sense, and I think a lot of that is Hardy is really turning this guy into a person in a way that I'm not sure DiCaprio is.
Even though you can't understand a good...
You can't understand half the things he's saying. The Hardy specialty.
Much like the Rylance performance, I would say, it's one that makes very extensive use of just the voice as a pure instrument. Rylance in Bridge of Spies is really just modulating this apparent monotone, but very effectively. And with Hardy, you don't, much like in Mad Max and almost every Tom Hardy movie, you can't really understand half of what he's a wonderful, unintelligible actor.
So what about Best Actor? It's assumed that DiCaprio is going to win this for a number of reasons, largely because he's an industry veteran at this point. But I don't think it's a remarkable performance. He's doing that method actor thing where we're definitely seeing his torment and we're seeing some of the things that he endured on set. But there's just not a lot of psychology to Hugh Glass. So I don't know how much acting he's really allowed to do in this film.
I don't really like any of the Best Actor nominees. I mean, they're all fine. So let's move on to something more interesting. Let's talk about Best Actress and Best Supporting Actress. In this case, kind of grouped together because there's one particular performance, which is Rooney Mara in Carol. Not a
if
supporting
anything,
role.
she's the lead.
Exactly. No, the Cate Blanchett character,
is more
Carol
supporting
is
than
more
Therese.
is more credibly a supporting actor. But I think the thing is that Mara's performance is not what you would call a star turn.
See, I wonder if it's more about the fact that it's a same-sex couple. I mean, if you look at Brokeback Mountain, for example, Gyllenhaal is as much a lead as Heath Ledger was.
Yeah.
But Gyllenhaal got relegated to supporting actor. But then that same year, Walk the Line was up for Best Actor and Best Actress. And I think you could easily argue that Reese Witherspoon in that film is very much supporting actress. But they were both elevated to, these are both leads.
I mean, Brie Larson, Saoirse Ronan, they're good performances in Best Actress. I think, as with Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress, I think is more interesting this year. You've got Jennifer Jason Leigh in The Hateful Eight, which is kind of this odd, feral performance that I know is very divisive. The whole construction of the character is very divisive. You've got Alicia Vikander for The Danish Girl. I think her performance in Ex Machina is much more interesting. I think
she just had a year.
Well, yeah, she just had a year.
I mean, she basically was in everything this past year.
I'm a little bit mystified by Rachel McAdams for Spotlight.
Well, because Spotlight is such an ensemble piece. Everybody is so devoted to being these working professionals, and they're building this sort of tapestry of the city and of the newspaper. I don't think these are standout performances because I don't think they're designed to be standout performances. If there's one thing that you're pulling for on Sunday, if there's one category that you could be the great decider on and you could pick the winner for, what would it be?
Well, for me, it's always going to be Best Director. And the nominee I like far and away the most out of all of them is George Miller.
It's hard for me to look at everything that came out last year and see a better directing job than what George Miller did with Fury Road. He kind of made what feels like a passion project on a $150 million budget.
I would still prefer Christian Petzold, who does tremendous stuff with performances. The most basic elements of film grammar in Phoenix. but not nominated. So I'm going to go with George Miller.
If I had to look and pick one category that I'm most passionate about and one win that I could secure if I had that magical power, I think I would go with Carter Burwell for Carol. A great score is one that I think it's impossible to kind of imagine the movie without it, and that score comes back to me all the time, and it evokes the entire film every time I hear it.
I'm not one of its biggest supporters, but I think the Burwell score as sort of this device that constantly returns you to the film. So you're looking at this moment in the past and you're always going to recall it with that sort of very hummable theme.
Moving on to the Best Picture nominees, I would say that this is a pretty solid year. Most years you have one that's just an outright disaster.
Yeah.
And I think you and I probably agree on the worst of the nominees, which is The Big Short.
Also shockingly nominated for Best Director. I can't really name a single scene in that movie that feels like it was directed by anyone.
There are times when he's doing a sort of bogus Scorsese imitation.
But the whole movie is just like, it's him like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what's going to stick.
It's Demo's sort of MO in that we're going to convey this information in the most entertaining way possible. There's something admirable about that. I don't know if it really works.
There's some strong to interesting movies also nominated. The Martian, which I think is enjoyable. Not a film that should really be nominated in a lot of categories.
No, but I mean, it's a semi-adult crowd pleaser, and I've written about this a little bit, but if you look at like all of the big hits of last year, it's one of the rare films that's not a franchise movie. It's not a sequel.
You're giving me all kinds of reasons that have nothing to do with this as a
with
film.
what the movie is as a movie, yeah. In the age of blockbuster filmmaking that we're living in, you don't think that being self-contained and having a standalone narrative is an artistic merit? I mean, even Mad Max, which I think is a much better film than The Martian, has its connections to other movies.
Yeah.
The Martian has a beginning, it has an end. There's not even any sense that there's going to be
The Martian
really
2,
continue.
it's going to be like Die Hard.
Exactly, The
He's
Martian
going to be
2.
stuck on a different planet.
And the other one I would say, I mean, I like Brooklyn quite a lot.
It's a wonderful Best Picture nominee for 1961.
In the same sense that I think that we can agree on the worst of these films, I think we can probably agree on the best of them too.
Which would be probably Mad Max.
Right.
And for me, Bridge of Spies is a film that just didn't get its due this year.
Yeah.
I think it's Spielberg's best in quite a long time. But Mad Max, we both agree on.
Yeah, it's so rare to get something like Mad Max in the Best Picture conversation at all. Just the level of craftsmanship on display in Mad Max and just honoring that kind of filmmaking is very heartening to me. I mean, it doesn't have a chance in hell.
I'd love for it to be Mad Max, but yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be The Revenant.
I think with The Revenant, I think this thing has a narrative that Hollywood likes. People suffered for their art.
Because they loved Heaven's Gate.
But The Revenant's a hit.
It's also a frontier western, very costly, very, very difficult production, very demanding on realism, made by a director straight off of winning Best Picture.
But people
Similar
like
situation-
troubled productions that turn out to be successes.
But as a lot of people have pointed out, Mad Max was just as difficult.
Well, right.
It was just
They
as
just
hellish a
didn't-
production, and nobody, it's not like they were in every interview being like, well, we really climbed into a car. What do you think it speaks to that even if we're trying to talk purely about merit when it comes to these awards, we still end up circling back to this idea of narratives? Oh, I'd love to see Sylvester Stallone get an Oscar because I like Sylvester Stallone. I'd like to think of myself as somehow able to separate works from the hype, and yet I can't resist it.
Maybe you're thinking the way that they're thinking. These awards are basically designed to further careers and to honor people within the industry. And the idea that they're solely based on merit or that this large group of people are looking and artistically evaluating these films is, I think, a fallacy.